Oh, we got to talk about something that sort of gives you a hate nap. Here's the headline. Missouri governor vows criminal prosecution of reporter who found flaw in state website. Well, let's have a deeper discussion. This is actually old news. More than 3 months old by the time you're watching this. Because I'm shooting it when it's 3 months old. Because it's still in the news. Now, what actually happened with this story is that a reporter noticed something odd about the Missouri Department of Education's website. You see, you could look up educators and administrators on them and submit a form and get their contact info. But it was actually listing everyone's social security number on the website in the HTML source. It was in a hidden field, but it was still returning it, like meaning that you could just save it to your computer and you'd never know. The reporter who reported it to the DOE, held that story until after they had fixed it, in case, anybody else was unaware, but you'd never know if the information was leaked. And here we are in December, and the governor has renewed his calls for prosecution of the reporter 3 months later when the story broke in October and the work to fix it was, before October. What crime is the reporter committed? Well, that's been a bit of a struggle. You see, the governor's already contacted a lot of people in law enforcement, including the FBI. The FBI investigated, and they told him that no crime had been committed. And that was prior to this announcement in December. And indeed, no crime has been committed. I believe that the governor of Missouri is abusing his power to simply silence and harass dissent. That's maybe a crime, but certainly not what has transpired here with the reporter. The governor likened what the reporter did to breaking into a house and sort of admits, the house had flimsy locks. But this is a terrible analogy. And this analogy is so bad, it's what tipped the scales for me. It's so deliberately misleading that it can't be explained by simple incompetence. The governor is doing this deliberately. It's malice on the governor's part. He's abusing his trust, the public trust that he has being put into office, to harass a citizen that has done nothing more than point out a problem, an embarrassing one, and one that affects more than 100,000 people. I mean, they're at risk of having their identity stolen. But at the end of the day, the crime really isn't any more severe than reporting a pothole in the road. So I thought I could show you what crime the reporter is accused of, or what crime the governor thinks has occurred. I'm simplifying a little bit, and names, names and places and stuff of the innocent have been changed. This was actually the Department of Education certification website, so you can check a teacher's credentials. It turns out that was all the same system as they actually use for everything. So your pay and your social security number and everything comes from the same database. Now, that's not good design, but Missouri also has a similar search for professional registration. So if you go to the Missouri Division of Professional Registration and you want to look up, say, a CPA or a plumbing company or something like that, it works kind of similar. And this website is a heck of a lot faster than the Department of Education certification site, and which is also a little broken right now. So I've searched for a plumbing contractor, and I've already sort of pre-changed the information in this. This is a mock-up. This is not real. And what the reporter is accused of doing is, like, you look at this table and it's like that looks a little weird. You can right click and go to inspect in your browser. I'm in Chrome, but this works just the same as in any web browser, and we can see the structure of the web page here. And so, like, here's a table. It's like, guess what? The HTML tag for table is table. This is text that the remote computer has sent to your computer to render, and how your computer interprets this is how it visually puts the document together. So what their programmers have done, it's like, you look at this and it's like, wait a minute. It says class hidden here. Okay, and then the little caret means there's more stuff in here. It's like, whoa, there's data there. Whoa, there's a social security number. What? That's the crime that the reporter is accused of doing. It should never be programmed this way. And what's worse is anybody that has used the system, there's no log if you looked at this information, like if you saved this information or you took it or you exported it. And if I just click on this and I change that and I do away with the hidden keyword, look, it's not hidden anymore. There's no one, like, the server sent me the information. It's just saying, well, the information's there, just don't show it to them. But you can't Like, the information is there. What's worse is if you have a screen reader or something like that, it's not necessarily going to honor that request to be hidden, because sometimes the way that you implement web pages for accessibility, like if you're visually impaired and you need to be able to see the content on the web page, that little trick doesn't always work. So, the reporter could have been using assistive technologies and stumble across something like that. Now, I'm leaving out some details, I'm simplifying here, but this is not a crime. This is their server sent the information. That's what it looks like. The deeper you dig on the story, the worse it gets. The governor insists that the reporter pointing out the flaw is in some kind of political game. There's, it's politically motivated manipulation, and apparently ordered the Department of Education not to thank the reporter for finding the issue as they had originally planned, because freedom of information, we got some drafts of that, but to go ahead and accuse the reporter of wrongdoing along with the governor after a meeting with the governor. So it's fortunate that we were able to get those records. Now, if one is a reasonable person with a little knowledge of the technology involved, one might assume that, both parties are somewhat reasonable and that there's two sides to every story. I mean, sounds reasonable. That's the con here, though. That's the grift. There simply isn't another side. The governor's side is just made up. It's not grounded in reality. And that's sort of where we are. That's a person in power that's abusing their power to demand the county prosecutor prosecute the reporter. It's not the governor's job to prosecute crimes. Why do we need repeated, press events to do this? I'm sure the governor is also making the prosecutor's life miserable, though probably not to the extent that the prosecutor's making the reporter's life miserable, because you have to subpoena things and do things. Some of the articles mentioned that the Highway Patrol, in addition to the FBI, have also done their own investigation to try to gather evidence and look for misdeeds. And no good deed goes unpunished, you might say cynically, but there is a deeper crime that has been committed here. This is worse. This is, a crime against an ordinary citizen by those in power. That's bullying. I can't abide by bullying. Any country that is free, the power of the government officials derived from a mandate from the citizens. And to be a criminal, there also has to be some element of intent, and I'm sure that the governor knows that. Did the reporter intend to steal the information of at least 3 educators? Because the governor was like, they stole at least 3. Is it a crime of opportunity? Because a crime of opportunity is still a crime. No, there's no intent here. If your neighbor breaks into your house because they think you're in danger, it really isn't likely that they would be prosecuted as breaking and entering. Why? Because your neighbor didn't intend to break into your house and steal stuff. I could just imagine the governor saying, find something this person did wrong so that we can prosecute them like the criminal they are. And if you're dealing with someone that has that mentality, let me assure you, they are not fit for public office, because it makes you wonder what else they've done. What else have they covered up? What else, when it wasn't so clean cut, have they done to sort of skew things the wrong way? Clearly they don't have a good idea. The governor gives himself away when he says of the reporter, they were acting against a state agency to compromise teachers' personal information in an attempt to embarrass the state and sell headlines for their news outlet. That's an exact direct quote from the governor. But he's giving it away. The information was compromised already through no action or inaction of the reporter. Not only is the statement untrue, even assuming that it were true, has the governor not embarrassed the state to the point that he sold more headlines and more newspapers for generating, as much embarrassment and ridiculousness? I mean, if that were a crime, the governor is much more guilty of embarrassing the state than the reporter is. So to me, in making such a statement, the governor makes clear that his intent is to create a distraction to try to cover up the situation, to cover up the oversight here that led to 100,000 people losing their information. If any reasonable person saw their neighbor report a pothole and then get harassed by the police or fined because their grass was too high or too tall or whatever, there's statutes for that kind of thing, most reasonable people would then decline to get involved in anything. And I think that's sort of where we are. And technology is kind of used maliciously as a prop in these kinds of deceptions. And this is not an isolated incident. You remember the software? No, it's an electrical engineer. You remember the electrical engineer in Oregon? Yeah. In 2017, that's about how long these things take to shake out. Motherboard shared a story of Mats Jarlstrom. He was an Oregon electrical engineer who challenged the state's traffic light timing, so the yellow light timing. And what began as a simple quest to help his wife avoid an unfair ticket turned into a multi-year saga, and he just wouldn't let it go. It's just tenacious, and it turned into that because the Oregon Board of Engineers fined him thousands of dollars simply because he dared discuss the issue when he wasn't technically a traffic engineer. Now, dealing with this sort of nonsense, certainly I would say interferes with the pursuit of one's happiness. Isn't that one of our inalienable rights? It's another case of an ordinary citizen seeing something and saying something because it's the right thing to do and being punished severely for it. In the end, Matt's won. He won the lawsuit, and they're actually using his equation to time the yellow traffic lights because math don't lie, but he's not going to be compensated for all of his wasted time. And that's a real crime. When somebody steals your time, that's just crazy. In the Missouri case, I think the reporter does deserve some kind of federal protection. Okay, that's kind of a spider, swallow the spider to catch the fly kind of situation, I guess, having the feds protect them from the state government. But I'm not sure what else to do when you have a governor that has this apparently unhinged obsession with hunting down a reporter. Is it something the reporter did in the past or their newspaper? It's like, the reporter's like, oh, this is a so-called news outlet. But, again, I would love to see that kind of fiery passion for rooting out corruption or waste in government spending or really anything that serves the public trust or the public interest for this kind of thing. But instead, this kind of passion is always a dog and pony show that is a distraction for the real screw-up. My advice to you would be to start to look for those kinds of things. It's a level of dishonesty from someone in a position of public trust, and that is what I think that makes it a crime. Because it looks like they're fired up about this, they're going to get it corrected, blah blah blah. But really, it's just showmanship. And computers, as it relates to this deception and distraction, they're hoping that you're looking at computers kind of as a black box and you won't look too closely at it. And using a lot of misleading words here that people will conflate in their minds this incident with other similar incidents where maybe the house keys analogy, makes sense. Oh, they broke into the house, but that's all done deliberately and deliberately dishonestly, and it's so egregious that it can't help but erode all public confidence. If you're in the know and you see somebody in the public office saying this after the experts have said, well, now wait a minute, you don't understand, are you going to trust them with even simple things? Well, look, if we want to fix it, it's up to us. It isn't an us versus them, but it is we the people. We the people have to stick together if we have any hope of advancing society in the face of this weapons-grade stupid. This is the kind of person, the governor of Missouri, I think, was the kind of person that was making sure that we saw through to burn the witches at the stake, in the Salem witch trials. Probably a direct descendant. I don't know, but that's the level of crazy we're dealing with here. The extent to which our technology logs and categorizes every minute of our behavior is increasing exponentially. That means that a future governor that is as or worse behaving is going to have an incredible tool to search that database and easily find something to make life difficult for anyone that they want, for any petty reason. Well, I'll show you, you embarrass us, I'll find something you're guilty of. It's like we can't give in to tribalism. There's a lot of tribalism that's used as a prop here. It's, us versus them, and they can't think about things like that. And computers are kind of used as a prop to perpetuate someone else's dishonesty. And the dishonesty is that they're deliberately creating an us versus them situation. The best way to avoid a witch hunt is to make sure that everyone is not so ignorant that they believe in witches. To do that, we must all personally invest some time and attention ensuring integrity, calling out deception where we see it, or we'll find ourselves victims of those that would deliberately misuse and deliberately misrepresent our technology to cover what are ultimately very human mistakes. So I don't know, this kind of thing is unsettling. It keeps me awake at night. And the only way that we fix it is to educate our fellow man and try to take corrective action wherever we have the opportunity to, even knowing that it might be a 5 or 6 year long battle, like the poor electrical engineer in Oregon. It is the only way that we can stand up to bullies like that. I'm Wendell, this is Level 1. I'm signing out. You can find me in the Level 1 forums. I just had to do this. I had to have the catharsis of this because it's just so egregiously wrong and computers are involved. So, sorry, and/or I love you. All right, I'll see you in the forums.